Hey folks, and welcome back to the Inside the Mix podcast. And in this episode, I'm very excited, as I always am, to welcome our guest today, Simon Quinn, who is one half of the Safety Word. Now, the Safety Word see themselves as artistic maestros, I love that description, who craft sonic compositions referring to their sound as atmospheric synth pop. And you can find elements of synth wave, synth pop, dream pop, ambient atmospherics, and upbeat electronic dance floor anthems, just to describe the varying sound palette they draw from. So, Simon is going to share with us a short musical journey, key songwriting tools and techniques. He's come prepared with a list, which is fantastic, and this is going to be brilliant. A deep dive into latest single, Vanity Life, and have another key one as well, which is quite a running theme for the podcast, is how to stay musically motivated. So, Simon, how are you, and thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm doing pretty well, thank you. Yeah.
Fantastic. Just for our audience, can you just tell our audience where you're joining me from today?
Melbourne, Australia. So it's
Excellent.
10 p.m. at night here. On
Fantastic.
Sunday.
Yeah, it is 11 o'clock in the morning over here in the UK, but I love this. I love that the podcast has this reach across the world now. I'm putting my tentacles out there and chatting to people all over. I think you are the furthest away to date, and racking my brains here over the past 50 episodes, which is amazing. So what I'd like to start with is your musical background. So I've got a bit of your bio here again. So you describe the Safety Word are a musical brotherhood. So you're consisting of yourself and John, now I'm going to hopefully pronounce his surname correctly here, Rosvanis.
That's correct.
Fantastic. On vocals, guitar, and yourself on keys and beats. So you've sort of solidified your sound over the years, playing and creating music together, forming a telepathic relationship when it comes to building whole musical worlds that they submerge themselves in. And I think that's quite notable in the latest album you had out as well. I've been putting acoustic tiles up in my studio space here, and I was listening to the album whilst I was doing it, and it's like the perfect ambience to have whilst I was doing it. It was brilliant.
Is that the moving forward in reverse?
It is, yes, that exact album. It's sorry, I should have named it whilst I was talking about it.
That's right. I've got a few out.
Yeah, I've noticed that, and I think we'll come back to that later in the chat. And in terms of I think it falls into the motivation category. So you can just tell our audience a bit about your musical influences, how growing up. How did it all start? How did you sort of grow into being a musician?
Yeah. Well, I learnt piano from a very young age. I wasn't particularly good at it, and that was the very classical sort of rulers across the fingers, sort of you've got the scale wrong. And then I sort of gave up piano because I wasn't really getting anything out of it. But then, got into guitar a bit later on, and then I played in sort of punk bands, alternative bands. That was like late 90s kind of thing. So a bit of sort of grunge, sort of post-rock kind of stuff. Played in a number of bands, and there was a really big scene in Hobart. So playing and going and just immersing myself in that scene for a number of years. And then I was at art school and started to get into more electronic type stuff. And and that's when I sort of had this idea of getting more into electronic music and the live electronic music. So I met people at art school, and we formed a band called Little Bird, and would play gallery openings and things like that, doing very abstract, down-tempo kind of lo-fi music, and this was in about 2000. Then about 2003 moved to Melbourne, formed a band called Vultures of Venus, which is electro-glam space rock band.
Oh, wow.
And we played for about 10 years and released some albums and stuff, and it was very sort of party, upbeat kind of music. And then sort of at the end of that, I was doing a side project with John, who formed the Safety Word with, and we just sort of started very casually doing stuff, but as we did more and more, we really liked what we were doing and started to take it a bit more seriously. For the first 3 years that we were together, we were more of a live band, and we used to put on performances where we'd have guest musicians, and we wouldn't really have set songs. We'd just have keys and loops that we were playing in, and we'd just sort of have these long 10-minute jams, and it was quite interesting and fun to do. And then we just started wanting to narrow it down to bit more digestible kind of thing. And at the moment we're still experimenting, as you said. Like, we released that album Moving Forward in Reverse, which I think is highly experimental. But then we also like doing like sort of ultra pop sort of synthwave stuff that has the classic chorus coming in at the 5 or 10 second mark, and it's just, you know, very pop structure and very accessible. But it's a big thing for us to be able to have a bit of room to breathe within our sound, because we have so much music in us that we want to get out, that we don't really want to be boxed up. So, you know, we have elements of chill wave or synth wave, and then also synth pop and 80s retroism in there. And then we also like our post-rock type stuff, and then we have a lot of electronic influences as well. I'm also a DJ, and what I play out is very different from what I do with the safety word. So I like playing glitch hop type, well, bass heavy type stuff. And sometimes some of that sort of merges into the safety word stuff. But we've got a lot of different influences that we like. And we enjoy being able to explore our different musical palettes and personalities within what we do. And I think we've built a bit of an audience that is willing to come on that journey with us. Yeah.
That's a fantastic background. I love that. So what you mentioned there about playing piano, it kind of resonates with a lot of the interviews I've done, whereby artists have started playing an instrument in their younger years and haven't quite sort of grasped it, for want of a better way of putting it, moved on to another instrument. And then you've gone down the alt route, the alternate rock route, the punk route and whatnot as well. And then you've sort of found your way. And I think it's very impressive, the raft of music you're currently doing at the moment. So you mentioned being a DJ as well. And I noticed in the Facebook group for the podcast, you put a post yesterday, I think it was, which was a link to a compilation album, whereby you've got quite a dark sound in what you've contributed to that, which sounds amazing. I really, really liked it. So I like the idea that you've got all this music inside of you, that the safety word is like your vehicle to get it out there, and you're not scared, for one of a better way of putting it, of conveying that music. You're not sticking within one set formula. You're actually just showcasing what it is you're about, you know. And I think you mentioned there about moving forward in reverse. Listening to that this morning and throughout the past week, when I've been doing my due diligence for this interview, it's quite different to Vanity Life. And I think it's what you mentioned there, wasn't it? About you've got that formulaic sort of like the pop punk, and then you've got the quite ambient experimental moving forward in reverse. And when I listened to the two, I listened to it and I was like, that's quite a difference you've got going on there, which is amazing. And I think it's brilliant. And my quick question is, that darker element that you had there at the beginning, what you posted yesterday, is that something you're going to lean into as well, like the darker synth sound?
At the moment, John's really into the idea of us doing some mini, like 5 to 10 minute movies when we create the soundtracks for them. And they're going to be kind of David Lynch-esque, kind of a Razorhead type thing, where we create these quite dark ambient drone-like soundtracks, and then create these mini movies with ourselves in them, and you know, release them up onto YouTube, but also on Spotify and things like that. So it'd be very different from our more commercially accessible synth pop stuff, but it's like another layer that people who like our sound can get into if they want to, or if people just want our pop stuff, then that's fine as well.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that. Like, that's, once again, it's just branching out. And I think from your bio, I got that you're very much a DIY band, and that you do a lot, if not all, of the production, post-production, the promo, the videos. You do it all yourself, is that correct? We do all the demoing ourselves. We've got a guy called Ryan Fallis at Invention Studio, and we like getting our vocals done there, and then he will master our music as well. Or sometimes we have someone else who we really like, who they've worked with, to master our music as well. So we had, for Vanity Life, was mastered by a guy called Matt in Melbourne, who's worked with Boo Seeker and Jared James and a few other Australian acts that we really like. And so we hit him up and showed him the track, and he was, he doesn't just sort of work with anyone, but he was, he said, I really like that, I'll do this for you. Fantastic. Have you ever
yeah,
considered...
pretty much DIY.
yeah, I was going to say, apart from the mastering. So, going back, so you do the videos, because I know there's a video for Vanity Life. Is that sort of produced, directed by yourselves as well? Yeah,
so that was shot in John's basement. We've got, ring lights and different coloured lights and stuff. Just shot on phone at the moment. And John's girlfriend filmed that. She often will do our photo shoots or our film clips. And then I edit it on Premiere and do, the layering of effects and the colours and all of that sort of thing. Just sort of keep our costs down as much as possible. We've got a coming up next on Friday, actually the 4th of November. We've got our Vanity Life remix single coming out, and so I've made it's got 6 remixes on there by artists from all around the world.
Yeah.
And I've made 6 visualizers for it. So we like to have a YouTube launch party for each of our major releases, particularly when it's a remix or something. And it's got little 1 to 5 minute intros from all the remix artists. And they just sort of show a bit of their Ableton or whatever DAW they're working on their session and how they remix the track and then play the visualizers. And we like to have some wine and cheese and sit back and watch that and be active in the chat. And we've had I think we've done it 3 or 4 times before. So we did one for Moving Forward in Reverse. They're up on YouTube. You can watch the replays there if anyone's interested.
I love that idea. Have you noticed, because you say you've done it before, is it gaining traction? So every time you do another one, are you getting more and more people involved? Because I know when you start these things, I've done it with the podcast, you start something and engagement might be quite low, but the more you do it, you find that you get more and more people each time. Is that happening?
Yeah, I think you're doing everything right to YouTube's algorithm. If you have a premiere of something and you create a Facebook event and you invite as many people to it like it's a gig, and then during the thing, like the actual band's there and they're active in the chat, people are asking questions, so YouTube can see there's a lot of engagement there, even if it's only 30 to 50 people, it's still really active and quite fun.
Yeah.
And then you've got, your 50 views, but then you're seeing the next couple of days it seems to spread it out. And within a week you've got, 500 views on it or something, which, isn't a lot, but for an indie band it's good. And then when we release a single or something, it seems like YouTube's friendly to us. So we put Vanity Life up the other day, and it's got up to 5,000 streams now. It's only been up less than a week, which is pretty good.
Fantastic. It's a weird one, YouTube, isn't it? I released a single a few months ago, and it did the same thing. And then I released another one, and then YouTube algorithm wasn't so kind to it. But that's fantastic.
But I don't think you have to worry. I mean, we try not to worry about vanity metrics, which is a bit of what the song Vanity Life's about, and just do it. And not even really, I mean, you can't help yourself but look at the metrics, but try not to worry about it. And that's part of my process too, is just being consistent and not dwelling on the numbers too much.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And much like yourself, I do more so with the podcast, actually, that you get the download metrics, and I can't help but look, and I think, no, I'm only going to look once every couple of days, and I end up looking every day, but it's hard not to. But I think to stay motivated, for me, I don't know about yourself, we'll come on to motivation later. If I was solely motivated, I think, by metrics, it would be very hard to... I find it a bit difficult to keep up that motivation.
I enjoy my Spotify for Artists app on my phone, and I like looking at it, just if I'm at work and got a few minutes spare or on lunch break or something, and I'll go, oh, look, watch the stream count. It's almost like a little bit of a game to see if you can get a song up to that 1,000 streams in the first week or something of its release. And it's sort of like a dopamine hit when you do it. But I try to just look at it as a fun sort of game rather than too serious, because ultimately what John and I like is just enjoying the creative process for ourselves. And if people want to come along on that ride, then that's great. But you know, occasionally we might do something that's a little bit more out there, and it, you know, doesn't necessarily do as well, but it was really important, and we really loved the song, and that's, you know, what we feel matters in the end.
Yep, totally agree. I think that is the key to creativity. You've got to love what you do, and then if someone else likes it, then great. And I definitely echo that sentiment. You mentioned that, in fact, I totally forgot what I was going to say then. I've totally gone blank. You mentioned, what was you? We were talking about the DIY approach, and then you moved on to the vanity metrics. You said something, and I should have made a note of it because I was going to come back to it and mention it then.
Yeah.
It wasn't the creative process. It wasn't DIY. Oh, it's totally gone. It was a really good question, and it's totally gone, and I've totally forgotten what it was. I'll tell you what, if I remember, we'll come back to it.
Yeah, come back.
Yeah. So what we'll move on to next then is the actual songwriting and creative process. So you've come prepared for this podcast interview with a list, which is amazing, and I love that. I
probably don't even need to look at the list because it's all up here.
Fantastic.
And this is what I do every day.
Brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, just for reference, so people might be interested in what I'm about to say. I did a bit of a challenge. I was working for a company last year making lo-fi music, and the challenge was, could I create 100 lo-fi songs? And utilising this process that I'm going to share, I created 100 songs almost too easily. So I challenged myself to write 1,000 songs in a year, and I did it.
Wow!
And so this is the process that I used to do that.
I cannot wait to hear this. And actually, I'm glad you said that because it made me remember what my question was going to be. Because in the notes leading up to this interview, you mentioned about gamification of creativity in music, and my question was going to be, can you give us some examples of the gamification, the game element that you use in the creative process? Yeah,
definitely. So when you're creating music, it's good to limit your options because there's just too many options that are open when you're staring at a blank door screen and going, okay, I'm going to make a song. So two of the really easy ones that you can get rid of straight away is key and tempo. So I like to use like a online generator, or even I've used dice in the past, or even just like a Ouija board, and you go boom, and you go, okay, I'm making a song in C minor. That's one choice out of the way. What tempo? You do the same thing. It's going to be 75 BPM. So then you've eliminated a lot of choices that could take you half an hour to think of. So I'm writing a song in C minor at 75 BPM. Let's go. And so, I can go on with the process of how I do that if you like.
Yes, please do. Quickly before you do that, when you have that key and you have that tempo, do you then not deviate that from that at all?
I'm just going to... Yeah, look, if you decide that it's not working, you can change it. There's no rules, you see. But that's just like a game that I play with myself. It's like, okay, so I'm going to write a song. What's the key? What's the tempo? Have someone else decide that for you, so there's less thinking for you to do, less obstacles in the way of you creating that track. And I just find that helps. And it also makes you write different music, because when you're writing a lot of music, you don't want it to sound the same. And so one thing you can do to help it not sound the same is have different keys, different tempos. Yeah,
fantastic. Okay, so I won't hold off any longer. So let's go through this creative process then. So do you want to read off to our listeners the creative process that you go through? Yeah.
So I can talk about that. So so my mentor that taught me process is a guy called Marc Matthews, who's an English guy who's living in Australia now. And he does a thing called splurging, and the idea is to create a lot of quantity over quality, and it's the idea of rolling a dice, and you're trying to roll a 6. So if you only roll the dice once, you've got a 1 in 6 chance of rolling a 6. But if you're, just say you do this splurging idea, I usually do 2 to 3 songs a day, but you can do bare minimum. You could do 1 song a day. That means over a week, if you're doing 3 songs a day, you're going to have 28 chances to roll a 6, rather than if you're just working on 1 track a week or something, and it might not be the right track to be working on. You might be spending hours on something that's not even that good, just because that's what you do. So what you can do is, the first thing to do is you get your band together. So I like to limit myself to 5 tracks, but there's no rules. If you're creating a song and you go, I need another track, you can put another track. But it's good to, as I was saying, limit the choices that you have in order to try and achieve things faster. So what you do when you're putting together your band is you select what you're going to use for your drums. So you have think about it like a traditional rock band. You've got a drummer, a bass player, someone playing mid-range, and someone playing lead, something like that. And then you choose your favourite VSTs or analog gear that you'd use for bass, that you'd use for your drums, that you'd use for lead, that you'd use for your pads or mid-range sort of sound. So then you've got a template you can load up each time, and then it's just less things for you to do in that session. And then there's different ways that I like to start a song, and I like to have different ways to start a song, so it's not the same all the time. But something that's helped me a lot is having something like a chord generator. So I've written down a few of the ones I've used here. So Scalar 2, Instachord, Captain Chords. So I've tried all of them, and they're all really good, and they actually work really well. So you can go, okay, I'm writing a song in C minor, and you can have it spit out some chords that are in C minor, and then you can listen to that and change them around to get something that you like. So you've just got a basis of something to start off. That's one way to start a song. I've since purchased a thing called a theory board, which is I've got it over there, but it's got chords built into it, so you can program whatever key you want. So you want A major, and then you can just play each of the chords in A major, and it's got all of the possibilities like suspended and all of that. And it's a really fast, fun way to create it. So it's like using those chord generators, but you'll have a lot more control over what you're doing. But the idea with splurging is that you want to just be really free in the process and just create something, and almost like the first thing that comes naturally to you. So without putting too much block on it, and not too much thinking about is it good, is it bad. It's just about rolling the dice and just putting down something. And the idea is to get out of the loop as quickly as possible, so you don't get stuck inside the loop. So you get a bit of an arrangement or something happening, and then you sort of arrange it out so it's over a 3-minute or 4-minute or however long you want the song to be. So you can start seeing an end point as soon as possible, because for years and years I would start making music and I'd just be stuck in like a little loop going around, or tweaking a hi-hat for hours, or doing things like that. And the idea of splurging is sort of the opposite of that. You use presets, or you use things just to get your sounds and ideas out there, because you can go back and edit it later. So if you want a pad sound or something, you can pull up a preset or something that's close to what you want, and then just tweak it a little bit, rather than going, I have to create a patch from start. It's going to take me. You can go back and do that later, if you decide a song's really good and you want a unique patch, because there's no point creating that patch if you're not even going to move forward with the song, and that could take you an hour or something, just to create that one thing. So the idea is, so this is the important bit, is you within the session, however long you decide that you've got to make music with everything else that's going on in your life, you might have a minimum commitment that you've only got half an hour, because you got a job, kids, you got everything you got to do. So you've only got half an hour a day. So if you've got half an hour to get an idea of a song out and get it out into actually a full song, so like 2-3 minutes, however long it needs to be. But then the important bit is that you finish the song. So whether you like it, you don't like it, and this is the thing, I try not to get emotionally attached to the song during the creative process, because getting too excited about a song can be a problem as well as not liking the song. So I, because obviously you like the song a bit because you've gone playing around on the keyboard or programming on the notes, depending on how you do it. You've got something out and you've decided, oh yeah, that's pretty good, I'm going to hit record. So obviously you liked it at that time, and the idea is you mix the track down and then you don't listen to it for a week. This is the big part. So each day what you do is you create 3 folders. So you have a sketchbook, then you have an in progress and a complete folder. So that song that you just did goes into the sketchbook, and you say 30th of October, song A. And then if you've got time, you might do 30th of October, song B. Song, if it's a Saturday night, you might have song D or F, if you're in the studio. And then what you want to do is you want to listen to that a week later. So you listen to the songs from a week ago. So every day, if you keep doing this process and you do it, minimum commitment of 20-30 minutes a day, you've at least got one song that you're listening to each day, and you go, oh, what's today? And what I do is I upload it to a private SoundCloud link, and then I like to listen to it in my car or walking my dog away. The idea is to listen to it away from your computer, so in a different room at least, but preferably outside and away from your house. And what you'll find is you'll discover, you'll play back the song and you go, wow, that's really amazing. I can hear how that could be a fully formed song. Or you might go, nah, not that one. And that's okay, because it took you 30 minutes or an hour, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours if, got carried away. But the idea is not to put too much, don't fully form the sketch out. Just get enough down so it's got the beat, the bass, the main components of the song, so that you can tell whether it's an idea that you want to spend more time on. And so if you decide that you like the song, then you can go into you put it into the in progress. And then you've got this folder of all things that you've decided that you like. And you can make notes and things like that. I keep spreadsheets and things on. So if I listen to the song, I can put into my phone, really like that one, but needs better bass sound, needs maybe speed it up by 2 ppm or something. You put your first reaction to it, and then you can go back and listen to it. Just open up the session and look at your notes and go, okay, let's try a better bass. Let's try it 2 ppm beat faster, and then you can see quite quickly what you want to do, and so from there you can either complete the song and put it into complete. Often it will happen really quickly for me. If I decide I like a song, I can finish it. Other people might like to leave it in progress for another week and listen to it a week again later, and then they can decide, And sometimes you put things in progress and you might work on it and go, actually, no, I'm putting it back in the sketchbook for the moment because it's not working. So you don't want to have too many songs in your in progress folder, because that's sort of like the work that you've got to do. So you try things out, and if you don't like it, you can put it back in the sketchbook. And see, I've got a sketchbook that's got more than 1,000 songs in it. If I ever have a creative rut, I could go back and mine these things for song ideas. So that's pretty much the process for how you can have endless creativity and sources for your music.
Fantastic. There are so many bits in there that I'd never considered doing, but I am definitely going to take forward. I think the most poignant thing for me are the buckets, 3 buckets, where you've got the sketch, you've got the work in progress, I might call this a paraphrase, and then what was the final bucket again, the third bucket?
You can have complete. Yeah, so you can call it whatever you want,
yeah.
or release it. Ready to go on SoundCloud, whatever you want to do.
I think that's a fantastic idea, and I like the idea of waiting as well to listen to the song before you decide whether or not you're going to take it forward. So actually giving it time to almost marinate on its own, and then you come back to it. How many songs would you have in the in progress? What's a healthy amount of songs to be working on at any given time? Yeah,
that's a very good question. I usually have about 10 in there that I'm liking, and then you can just. Yeah, it can be between 10 and 20, but try and keep it definitely under 20, closer to 10. Yeah, because that's the ones that you really think are actually really good songs that you want to release. And so the idea with the safety word, what we've been doing for 3.5 years is releasing a song or an EP every 5 to 6 weeks to feed the Spotify algorithms, and also just for ourselves, it feels really good to always have something that's just come out, and then a track usually has a good cycle for about 5 weeks, and it feels like on social media you can talk about that track for at least a month after it's out, but then sort of on week 5 you can stop talking about the track, and then week 6 you can talk about the new one coming out, and it's like this nice cycle that you can have, and people that are fans of your music always have something that's fresh, and then the idea of something else coming out that they can look forward to as well. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. It's a bit, testament to yourselves and your songwriting partner there for the amount of music they put out, and it's quality music, which is incredibly impressive, and I can see through this workflow how it is possible, because I think right at the beginning of the demonstration, the way you described it, you mentioned about how you stopped sound designing you when you're writing a song, because I've fallen into that trap, and I could sit there for a couple of hours and come up with this great pad sound, and then I might not actually take this song any further, and then that idea dies, and being able to not, like you said, not get emotionally attached to the song and stay objective, create the song, complete it, come back to it in a week, and decide whether or not you're going to take it forward. And I can totally see how you would come up with so many songs. It's really about having as much much work done before you start the sessions as well. So that's even like having all of your drum samples really clearly marked, like your favourites. Like only have your favourite 10 kick drums, your favourite 10 snares, so you're not cycling and spending hours, because this is things I used to do, is spend half an hour finding the perfect snare, when really you've got your 10 favourites or something like that. And that's even for basses, that's why you say you have your dedicated bass VST, and you have all they might be patches that you've made too that you can pull up, sub bass 1, sub bass 2, synth wave, up-reg bass, whatever it is. But I create patches and then label them too, or I relabel other patches or put them into folders so you can find them really quickly, because you don't want to be spending time, cycling presets or trying to create a sound that you hear in your head, but then you lose the momentum for creating the song. Because, as I said, you can always come back to shape the perfect lead sound and spend an hour on it. If you decide that the track's killer and it's worth spending 2 hours, 3 hours on that perfect lead sound, then that it is, because you've got the track already there, and all it needs is that one little thing that's going to take it over the edge. Yeah, brilliant. I think it kind of echoes something that I read a while back, and it's what I tried to instigate in my own songwriting, admittedly not anywhere near as prolific as yourself, but it was a case of I try and have separate sound design sessions to songwriting sessions, and not having any crossover between the two. Is that something you would say is a definite do? Yeah, definitely. Well, I have sessions where I'm just organising my samples, or organising my VSTs, and organising or doing sound design, just exploring new VSTs that I might have just downloaded. So I'm not doing that while trying to create a song. I'm just like, okay, I've got this new VST, I want to learn how to use it, and I'm just going to do that, rather than trying to do it while making a song, because it's too distracting doing both.
Yeah.
Can be, yeah.
Yeah, I would totally agree. So my next question off the back of that is then, so you've got your work in progress, you're working on it, and then you want to move it to the completed folder. How do you know, at what point do you know what, this song is ready to move into that completed folder? Is there what is that point? How do you know that?
Well, I think it depends on the style of song that you're making. So if you can listen to it through and it's exciting throughout. So there's another thing that I use is like the rule of 8s or 16ths. So every 8 bars something is happening, something is changing. Is it boring? Is it progressing? Is there a beginning, middle and an end? Because a song is very much like telling a story. Is there some sort of payoff? Like, is this worth 3 or 4 minutes of someone's time? Like, does the song just sort of repeat itself within, like, if you've heard the first 10 or 20 seconds, is there a point for people to watch the rest of it or listen to the rest of it? But that's a very individual question, and that's up to the artist to decide what sort of music they want to make and what sort of stories they want to tell and worlds they want to create.
Fantastic. So where does your songwriting partner come into this process? Is he doing the same thing as you, or are you working together, or do you bring the ideas together at a certain point? Well,
often we'll have writing sessions where we get together and we do this process in the same room. I'll do a lot more of it myself, though, and often I'll come to him with a song. But we find that it is a lot more valuable. It feels like the right thing to do when we create a track together, sort of from scratch, and we're doing the whole process like that. He makes music. He's not so into computers and stuff, so he's like the analog and I'm the digital. But he has like an OP1 and a whole bunch of like little micro music type makers and stuff like that, and he records it onto an 8-track, digital 8-track. So he'll often have stuff like that, and he'll bring that over to me and go, oh, can we make something from this? So he does his own type splurging sessions, and he'll save them down, and then I can cut them up and make something new from that. And that's how some of the moving forward in reverse stuff came about.
Great stuff. That's brilliant. I love this. I'm sort of awestruck by this process, because I've been trying to find a way, because you mentioned there about time, and time is
I've got a full-time job. I'm a high school teacher in a school for autism. I've got a 9-year-old son, and I'm probably someone that you wouldn't think would be able to be prolific with music. So I've got everything going against me, but then I try not to use that as an excuse or a problem. And so, some days will be really full on, and it might only have 20 minutes or half an hour, but I see it like going to the gym, and it's like exercising your musical muscle. And so it becomes easier for me to create, to get the splurge done than to not do it. And I feel really bad if I don't do it. But you don't beat yourself up about it. But, it's because I enjoy that thing of having the 7 days later to go, oh, what did I do a week ago? And you can look in your folder and go, oh, I didn't do anything. Why did? Or you go, oh, I did 7 tracks on that day. Let's have a listen to those. And that's really exciting. It's like a birthday present. It's like you get to open it up and you go, oh, what am I going to hear? Because you forget what you've made like a week ago, and because there might have been another 20 songs since then, and so it's like you're hearing it for the first time, like someone else made it, and you go, wow, what's that? And it's really exciting, and that's why you listen to it away from the computer too, so you're not looking at the MIDI notes, or you're not looking at the DAW, you're actually just hearing it as a piece of music.
Lovely. So is that how you stay motivated then? You mentioned about finding time, because you sound like you're a very, very, very busy individual, what with the DJing as well. So is that how you stay motivated? You say that exercising the musical muscle, which is in one of my notes here, and I was going to ask about how do you stay motivated? Do you have it as like habit and routine now? It's a case of I need to do this, and then you get the payoff the week later, and that you can listen to this music back. Is that how you stay motivated?
Yeah, it's just about just doing it every day, and the more that you do something, they say it takes like 30 days to form a habit, you know. And so if you're creating music every day, you know, that's what you do, you know, when you maybe first get home from work or, when, you know, whatever the time is for you. Some people are morning people, they could get up and do it. I'm not a morning person. I like to stay up till 1 a.m. or something and do it when everyone else is asleep, you know. And that's a nice creative time for me, but whatever works for you. And, you know, it depends on your situation, you know. But if you can find half an hour to do something like this and do it every day just as a minimum commitment, you'd be amazed at what you can do. And in a month, you know, if you've done one song every day for a month, at least probably 5 of those are going to be really awesome songs, you know. You got an EP.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah. It's that compound effect, isn't it? It's doing little things often, and they gradually build and snowball into something bigger. And it doesn't
matter if the song's not good, because it's still a worthwhile use of your time, because you're getting better at creating beats faster, creating melodies, creating pads, you know, just doing everything. So it's never a waste of time if the song doesn't work out, and that's how you've got to see it as well. You might have a week where none of the songs you want to move forward, but you've still gotten better at music production and playing your instrument and using your VSTs and using Ableton or whatever you use, and so it's never a waste of time.
Fantastic. So you mentioned there about getting better over time. Was it quite challenging? Might not be the right word, but when you started this process, was it? I suppose challenging would be. Was it quite a challenging thing to do in terms of these restrictions and this finite amount of time and everything combined together?
Yeah, so when I started this process, did it as a monthly sort of challenge, as it was called, and then you challenge yourself to go, okay, I'm going to do this every day for a month, and as I said before, habits form within a month, so you go, you think, I'm only doing this for a month, I can keep going, I'm going to do this, and obviously you get to the end of the month and you want to keep going because you've written like at least 10 songs that are really cool, and usually before I started this process it might take me 3 months to come up with one song, you know, so it was pretty life-changing for me,
yeah,
a real eye-opener. So I've never looked back from once I discovered this this process.
Yeah, excellent. I think for the audience listening, I think it's that the key bit there is that continuation and persevering and getting and it echoes a conversation I had with another artist in one of these interviews, whereby it was a case, I think he said, just break through, just continue going, and you know, and you will come out the other side. It's probably the wrong way to put it, but it kind of makes sense. And then at the end of it, you like you said there, after those 30 days, you have that habit, and then you have that routine, and it's ingrained in you. You continue on with it, which is amazing. One thing I was going to say is I realised with time here we're already at 45 minutes, and I want to touch on Vanity Life. So
okay.
Could you give because it is the point of recording this episode, it is the most recent sort of single. Can you give our audience a bit of a breakdown of how that song came to life?
Well, that song came through the splurging process that I do. So I didn't think much of the song when I wrote it. I just, was just throwing ideas around, and then I did put it into the in progress phase. So if you're doing this with a bandmate or something, I often will send my bandmate the songs that are at the ones that I decide that are worth moving forward with, and so I just emailed him the MP3 mix down of it, and I think within 5 minutes of me sending it to him, he was like, "That one, I've got a melody already. Can I come over and record something?" So so I think it was like a Friday, and he came around Saturday morning and just laid down some vocals, and I was like, wow, he'd almost written the whole song, like from hearing it and being inspired by that particular one. And yeah, it came together quite quickly like that, and then we like to workshop vocals together and sort of like what the theme of the song is, what we're trying to say, and that sort of thing. And so the song Vanity Life is about how particularly artists can feel a lot of pressure on social media to have to be constantly not only creating something and feeding the algorithm beast, but also only presenting their best sort of self, sort of like that, you know, because people don't want to really hear about, you know, how bad your day was and how much you hate your job. Or, you know, they just want, they're there for the good time, you know. So it can often feel like, you know, you've had a really hard day and you don't really want to post to social media, and that's where batching and that sort of thing is a really good thing to do. That's another conversation. But so Vanity Life is about sort of rising above this sort of striving for vanity metrics and this ideal image that you have on social media, and rising above that to be able to present something more real and authentic. And so in the film clip we had a lot of fun sort of dressing up as vain and that as possible with makeup and glitter and, you know, female coats and stuff, and just being a bit over the top and glam, and that's that sort of like look at me TikTok culture kind of thing. I totally get. Having seen the video, you can see how it would satirise that sort of culture. And it's great to do that. Yeah, I mean, people don't really know we're joking, but that doesn't matter. It goes back to what you said earlier, doesn't it? About like you're creating it for your own enjoyment, and if somebody else enjoys it, then fantastic. You know, you mentioned there about that the vocals were recorded the second day. Have you ever done it the other way around then, where you've had vocals first and then put the sort of the arrangement? John sends me dictaphone recordings of him like out in the, you know, sometimes it could be on the toilet, wherever he is. Very reverby there, John. But he'll send me little bits and he's like, oh, can we make this into a song? And so like I'll listen to it and then, you know, copy it into the DAW and sort of work something around, obviously. And then I'll send it to him, and we do a lot of like sending stuff because it's easier than getting in person, so we don't get to see each other in person too much, you know, once a week or something like that. Sending files back and forth, like, what do you think of this? How about that one? So sometimes it works like that, or he'll have a guitar line that he'll play or something like that, and he's got a melody. And it's quite funny, some of the first sketches that you'll hear, just to anyone else, they just think that doesn't sound like a song, but we just totally trust each other and know that it's going to be totally different by the time we actually do it as well. Brilliant. I know what you mean there when it comes to singers, and I'm not a singer myself, but I come up with melodies, and it's kind of where inspiration strikes. You never know when that situation's going to be, and it can be very weird situations, you know. But that's great that you can do it from the other way around as well, so you can actually start from lyrics or from vocals, and do it that way around. So with regards to this splurging process, you mentioned a few key tools earlier that you use to come up with chords. I think it'd be quite cool for our audience if you could maybe list off a few of like your most important tools that you use during this splurging process. One of the ones that I really like is Scalar, which is a chord composing tool, and so you can set what key you want it in, and then you can use your left hand to play up the sort of scale. You press one key and it gives you a chord, and I find that's a really nice way of creating a chord sequence quite quickly, is by using something like that. And another one that is equally as good as Scalar 2 is the Captain Chords one, Instachord. Very similar, depending on, you know, the feel or look or, you know, what you like. And there's even other ones that I've experimented with that you can get. They can spit out melodies for you as well. I prefer to write my own melodies, but if you want something to start your inspiration, it's, you know, could be a tool you want to look at as well. Fantastic. I'm going to look at those because it kind of resonates with me well. It's something I've been doing with my own soundwriting. I combine songwriting and sound design. My own songwriting recently, which is where I'm trying to start with chords. And at the moment, I'm just picking a scale, as you've done there, and quite arbitrary,
and then trying to come up with the chords. And I can be sat there for quite some time trying to come up with the chord progression. But I'm certainly going to try out this scaler and the other one as well.
It's quite nice, like, because you can even have it like spit out some chords for you. So, like, 4 bars or 8 bars, and you can listen to it and go, do I like those chords? And there might be just one chord that you go, no, I don't like that, and then you can just highlight it, press what is it, the button, and it'll give you a different chord. So you listen to that and go, oh, yeah, that works for me now, I'm going to go with that,
Fantastic.
And it's a good way to have something to start the song, because that's starting the song can be the hardest bit. So.
Yeah, 100%. These are fantastic ideas. I'm going to take so much of this away and use it in my own productions.
Great.
And audience listening, if you do as well, please do let us know which bits, if not all of it, you've taken away and used, because I'll be intrigued to know, because I think it's fantastic. So, off the back of all this, so you've got all these great tools, you've got this process. Are there any sort of tools or techniques that you think could help improve your songwriting and production workflow? I suppose that would be the question.
At the moment I'm learning how to master properly, because we still often, mastering is the dark art of mastering. I think it's a really good skill. So I'm learning how to master in Ozone, because that's just something I can do it already to a basic level, but I'd like to be able to do it, to the level that you pay someone $100, $150 to do. And that's sort of what I want to get onto next. One of the other things that I didn't mention is with beat making. I think it's a lot more fun once I started using a pad controller to make my beats rather than using a mouse and clicking. It's just like this, being able to tap in the beat and rather than program it. It's just a lot more fun, and you come up with more interesting things as well. So having some sort of, and that's the same with melody as well, having a keyboard, even if it's a 25 key keyboard, rather than clicking like things, it's just, you get a lot more organic kind of sounding music, and especially with lo-fi music, you want those hi-hats not to be too synchronized. You want them swaying around and have a bit of a human feel to them, and that can be fun. And you can always quantize it later on if you do want it to be a robotic kind of thing.
Brilliant. Once again, I've been on a songwriting binge myself, and you pretty much everything you're saying is resonating with me, because I've done exactly that. I've moved away from the mouse clicking beat creation, and admittedly I'm using my MIDI keyboard. I've got a smaller controller, but it's not in the studio with me, and to create beats. And one thing I've done recently with percussion in particular is I'll have the 8-bar loop or 4-bar loop playing with the metronome, and then I'll have a load of percussion sounds, and I'll just play random stuff, random bits and pieces. And it goes back to what you said earlier, that you could play all this, and then you might find there's 3 or 4 little MIDI notes, a little progression, that you get rid of everything else, and then you have that great bit there. And it's through experimentation and just mashing that keyboard that I come up with it, rather than sit there with a mouse and think, right, I'm going to put this bit of percussion here, this bit of percussion on this, and this here, and then realise 15 minutes later I don't like that. Whereas I could have just jammed on the keyboard for 8 bars and come up with something great. So everything you're saying is fantastic, and I think the audience are going to get so much out of this. It's brilliant.
Excellent.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. No, it's a life-changing thing if you can get it right. Yeah.
I can imagine if you're knocking out 1,000 songs in a year. I'm not impressed. I mean, that would be that's probably the most prolific in terms of individuals being on the podcast, which is and it's quality as well. That is the key. The music you're putting out is also quality. So I just throw that in there as well.
That's right. It's hard to say it to people without sounding like you're kind of arrogant or cocky or something like that. But I'm a very humble person, and but it's all about the systems that you have in place, that allow you to do things that you wouldn't think that you'd be able to do.
Yeah, 100%. An audience listening, do take away all of these nuggets of wisdom information, and do feedback. Whether you're watching this on YouTube, put it in the comments, or if you're listening on your podcast player of choice, just put I say review, or DM on Instagram and let us know what you're using, because whichever part of this you're going to use in your own productions, because there's so much in here that's so useful, and I'm going to be using it myself, I know that much. So Simon, we're sort of almost at the hour mark now, so what I'd like to give you the opportunity now is just to, where can our audience find you online? Where can they find your music and more about you as a band?
Yep, so you can go to www.thesafetyword.com, and that's our tap link page, and that usually has everything that's current for us. It has links to our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of that, TikTok, Twitter. We're on all of them. It also just has direct links to our latest songs, our what's coming up, also what's just been released, our latest video clips, our latest press interviews, things like that. I'm going to put this podcast up at the top.
Fantastic.
For the next week.
I'd like to hear. Brilliant.
Yeah. So
Great stuff.
that's probably but obviously if you look us up on Spotify, we're there, The Safety Word. YouTube, what are we? Actually YouTube just changed to @ The Safety Word, and we're the same on TikTok and on Instagram as well. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff, and I will put links, that link in the show notes as well, so you can go and once you've listened to the episode, you can go in and check all that out there. Fantastic, Simon. Thank you so much for joining me on this today. I know it's quite late where you are now, so it's probably reaching 11 o'clock.
Yeah,
so,
it's 11:02 now, but that's fine.
Yeah, and it's
time
it's only
flies
midday
when you're having
here.
fun. Yeah.
Exactly that. These podcast episodes, I never get through everything that I want to get through. I find I always overindulge with my show, with my questions and stuff that I have written down. But there's so much to take away from this episode in terms of songwriting, and I think it's massive, and I think it's going to be so good for the audience listening. So a really, really big thank you for joining me today. And,
thank you very much. I've had a great time chatting with you.
No, it's been brilliant, and I'll let you enjoy what's left of, there's only an hour left of the day.
That's right.
And we'll catch up soon.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Cheers, buddy.